Test. Hello, test. Okay, let me know if the volume is okay, because I made a lot of mistakes with this in the past. And I got my video capture device mic off. And I'll probably fall asleep soon, but greetings anyway. Sounds and looks good so far. Thank you, Booster. And Jeff, greetings to you as well. Sound is good. Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Maybe I should even start turning this way a little bit so I can have that mic right by my voice. So anyway, today I wanted to, unless you had something on your minds right away that I can talk about, I'm going to go right to, I'm going to say a little bit about something else before I go into this, because I was going to get into scripture, and I know that can be difficult. I know, I understand that scripture can make you feel like, I'm not a Christian, I don't want to be, it just makes me uncomfortable because of how it's been used and abused. That's exactly what's happened to it. It's been used and abused, and it's from 2,000 years ago. So it's been attached to religion, and we see that the religions are upside down, inside out, and as well as the secular people and the atheists. They're all upside down, inside out, in all different ways, but they're all potentially struggling. We're all struggling because we're all in the same boat, really. To make sense of things and look for the truth and take breaks and and have different forms of rebellion to ideas and dealing with so much. I mean, we're all dealing with a lot, and the only way we can really get some help with that is if in some way we are seeking to separate from the human kingdom. No matter what, whether that's a militia group, not proposing violence, but that can be one of the ways Doe said that people are separating from, because a lot of the people in the militia groups are quite well informed about things. And a lot of them were in the military. And they saw what happened to them in the military. So, and what they did. And they didn't like it. And a lot of them have PTSD. A lot of them are self-medicating. They're doing whatever they can to survive. And they're also subject to all the misinformation, of course, from the religions. And so some of them are believing that Trump is the savior, to Jesus. And I'm not saying that even Trump doesn't, wonder about that, because, but if he's got any sense at all, which I think he does have some sense, then he knows that's not true. But I've never heard him talk about it. But that's so there are a group of people that are of that mindset. And they can be very dangerous. And but not any more dangerous than the center and the left. Really. There's nobody's on the side of the right when they're, but even carrying a weapon around, I didn't intend to talk about this. Which I don't do and I don't approve of. I don't even own one, a gun. is like living by the sword, dying by the sword is one thing that's wrong with that. But Jesus did say that the first time he sent them out, that they weren't sent with a sword, and they were asking for help with their needs. He said, "This time, you should have a sword." And Peter asked them, he said, "Well, we have one? Is one enough?" And he said, "Yes." So I think you can. I mean, some people think that he was intending to be, taking up the right to have self-defense, and I can see that. I didn't think about it before I heard Stewart talking about it, and he was with T&O for a year in campgrounds where I wasn't, and so he heard a lot of things that were really interesting for me to hear, things I've been wondering about. That turn the other cheek didn't mean that you didn't try to defend yourself if you're having a problem, or if somebody's doing something to somebody else, defend them. That's the greatest love you can show for your brother, sister, or whatever you want to call yourself in terms of a gender. Then is to lay down your life for them. That's what Jesus taught. And so then some people in the military that joined, thinking that they were actually stopping a serious threat to the United States, had some potentially good motivation there. And but when they saw the handwriting on the wall, I think the next level, if people were doing that and they thought that this was something that was good to do, I think would make a special case to put them on the program of seeing if they could help them identify that this wasn't going to be good for anybody, and that they should see if they can get out of it as soon as possible and take the lumps. If that means the brig time or whatever, this honorable discharge. I'm not saying T&O would say all this. I don't know. This is just my kind of putting things together from what Jesus taught and from what T&O said and taught. They didn't teach about. I didn't hear them ever. Well, Stewart did that. He heard them talk about that self-defense was okay. So that's what I'm basing it on. But it actually answered a lot of questions, because the next level is practical. Then like Jesus, see that corresponds with when Jesus said that find agreement with your adversary when you're in the way with them. Otherwise, you might be before the judge and then before the trial, and you might go to jail. And then you're going to have to pay, because it's not going to be easy in jail. It's going to be difficult there. And you're not going to have the ability to stand up for the next level. Sure, with one or two people you would, but that would get old pretty fast. Or even dozens of people. I can get word to get around the whole prison, right? And it can help a lot of people, actually. So, I mean, the next level can make a good thing out of it if any of us do find ourselves in jail in the future. But we try to stay out of those kind of circumstances. We want to abide by the laws, not because the laws are good. It's because we don't want to be interfered with in doing a task for T&O by standing up for them. Standing up for Jesus now doesn't mean hardly anything. I mean, the next level, if somebody really believes in Jesus, they're going to find their way to hearing about the next level, and they're going to be put to the test on whether they can swallow it or not. We're all put to the test. But understanding something about Scripture can really be beneficial, I believe. And I don't just believe that. Doe said it to the new students and the old students during the meetings in 1994. It's on one of the Inverness tapes, I think, or a Portland tape, or the Denver tapes, and they're all part of these live streams. So if you search on those keywords of those city names, you'll find them, and you can hear some things that I heard for the first time, because I wasn't in all those meetings. It was really great to hear those things, and some of them have been, most of them I think have been transcribed by different individuals, not myself. I didn't do it, but I did some proofreading on them, and then I put them. I still got to do that. I have a task to do that, and I've been slow to do that with the Black Hawk tapes. But the Black Hawk tapes are also invaluable to listen to over and over. You know, you don't want to listen to it, just listen to it again, if you've listened to it before, I would suggest, as well as any others. The more the merrier. There's nothing, some people would listen to those tapes, the audio tapes, looking for dirt. And they didn't find, I know somebody that actually did that and didn't find any. What he came away with was saying that T&O were well intended, but they got off the track. They just went crazy or something. I don't know what else he said about it, but they didn't seem to have anything in it. He couldn't find anything in them. The one thing he said that was he thought that nothing they said came true because of some of the things that didn't come true exactly the way they said it first. So he wasn't wrong about that. But I mean, in terms of saying nothing is where it was totally inaccurate. And also, it wasn't necessarily accurate even the things that they said were going to happen that didn't happen, because that was their instruction to say that. And that put people to the test, and that also challenged people. That became a filter, because they didn't need people to believe in them. They wanted people to believe in them, because they knew what they had to offer. There weren't any question about that. They knew there were jobs on spacecrafts with a new physical body that doesn't have to go through what we go through here. And that the way to get there is to disconnect from our humanness as fast as we want to, as much as we can, without leaving a mess. And asking the next level to help us with that. Not and asking the next level, ask them to direct you through it and show you who knows what might happen, because you're still going to need a job. You're still going to need a way to make sticks to feed ourselves. And because we need our vehicles to do the task. If we offed our vehicles, we wouldn't have learned all the valuable lessons that can come from being in this position that we're in right now. With recognizing the truth of T&O's information enough to where you have to have more. You keep wanting more. And you're willing to deal with the things that you don't agree with initially. And I'm not talking about the things that I say. I mean, you can disagree with me all you want, and that's perfectly fine. I'm glad to have it. I know I learn things all the time, and I change my tune also. Because I have nothing to gain by being right. I have everything to gain by doing right. Do's rightness. In saying and what I say and what I do. same as everybody. The Booster says, during the next graduation, whenever that is, will the older member leading that flock have the same soul that inhabited Doe? I don't know. It's possible that Doe could be have the job that T had through that civilization. So either way, Doe would be your older member, Doe's soul. That I think I can say with confidence. Not that the next level couldn't do something else. So, but that's not. They taught that you're born into the next level by an older member. And so since T is your older member now, if you think of Doe as your older member now, then T is also your older member now. Because he's your older member's older member. The same relationship that I have or any of the students had. And so you're in the same strain. But like if Logodi or Livodi or Janodi or Junodi, who I have reason to believe were among the oldest of the elder students, if you want to put them in terms of the 24 elders, which there's some indications of that Doe even gave when he said when we went public in '94 that these we're down to 24. And I didn't even think we were. But I always got numbers wrong. I learned later. Well, not always. I sometimes got numbers wrong in the way I remembered things. Anyway, but that's beside the point. So yeah, I guess I said it as much as I can say it, I think. I could have brought more background to that because see, the way it's designed, as I understand it from T and Doe, is that the older members don't do all the jobs. There's always older members that are like apprenticing with their older members for a job like they have. Now, this might be considered to be the same crop in the next civilization. The earth might be considered to be that same crop, and that it would be a start of a new garden before somebody else. But who knows, That's another way of looking at it. But so I don't need to keep on guessing. But it does. But like Revelation 12, which Doe said was the woman was talking about T, says that she had 12 stars in her crown. Now they've always talked about 12, right? So I've wondered if that meant that she has 12 students that graduated that have all become, I guess, of some equivalence to Doe, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there could be, they could be all different. Because it's not like judged the same way. It's judged by experience. And we can grow faster and slower than one another. Because we can get to a place to where it was like, wow, that task was hard. And T, like I'm not saying, I'm not sure I'm ready for a test like that. Because it is difficult. It's difficult when you're doing it. After they get back to the next level, it's not difficult anymore. But that doesn't mean that they don't remember the difficulty they had. although a lot of it might fluff off. But I don't know if it will. I don't know how soon it would. Because, I mean, our human experiences do fluff off. So we don't necessarily remember a lot of details about certain things. But we come away with the lessons that we learned. And it doesn't mean that we forget everybody that we were close to. I don't think that happens right away. But whether we retain all the memories that we had with people that we had a good time with, I don't think we do retain too much of that. We don't need to anymore because, I mean, if we had a good relationship with somebody, then we had a good relationship with them. And we might even be part of the crew that is working on helping that individual in the world more directly, because TDNT also taught that the students were helping others in their strains. And that would mean that the ones that graduated, they are potentially helping individuals in their strains. Because it's a strain of mind and it's a strain of body. It's both. Because the genetic mind that is actually traveling with the flesh that it occupies, that it's hosting. That the flesh is like a host. It's a computer system that has a whole bunch of different inputs on it. All the senses are inputs, and the mind is a huge input, right? And so we are everything we agree to think and do, and we gravitate to, and we teach us, we learn and absorb, and gather and duplicate. So if we become a computer programmer, then we end up having that skill, and that skill might end up translating to a skill in the next level that we might want to continue to work in that direction. In some way, but somebody else might have come up through art or through raising kids. It doesn't matter what it is, or politics, or whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. That's the way TDNT would talk about it, that you're coming up through the human kingdom with those 12 grades in school. Getting into humanness in the first 6 grades, and then getting out of humanness in the last 6 grades that the next level is helping the whole kingdom with. And that's why it's a cyclic kingdom, and that's why we die, among the other things that happen to us that are difficult. But that give us opportunities to ask the next level for help, so that we can outgrow the pain, and by therefore doing that are converting our suffering into positivity. The phoenix rising out of the ashes. The becoming enlightened, the Christing. Having your whole body filled with light, filled with true information. Because right now, in the human kingdom, how do we know what's true and what's not? We don't. Do we? We can only really kind of guess, and make an educated guess, because anything can be played on us. Now, I believe that because TDNT said that when people are seeking the truth, that it goes to where they are. Said that in the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. It can be found in part. Some of the parts of it can be found on my blog, SawyerHG.wordpress.com. So, and if anybody wants the audio tapes, you can write to me at Yahoo SawyerHG@yahoo.com. And I've got a bunch of their materials. And I'll explain to you, if you write to me on that Yahoo address, what I've got and what I can send, and that and I don't charge for anything. I don't have to do that. If I did have to, in order to continue to do this and live, I would ask if there could be a donation, but I don't need that right now. I think I would always provide it for free, of course. But when I'm gone, if my vehicle's daughter ends up needing ways to make money, I'm going to tell her, go ahead and get a few dollars. If you ask for donations on my materials that continue to send to people. I mean, TDNT gave us the on 2 occasions. I think they had requests for donations. We never talked about it in the meetings in '94, but I think we put out a box of some sort if people wanted to give us something. I don't remember really. I didn't take care of that. I don't think we did it right away. I can't remember that clearly because I seem to remember that talking about, having all the things set up for a meeting. We didn't need that much, like a folding table and a box, and if we had some written materials, the posters generally, and some of the statements, I think, and things like that. But anyway, I'm going to move on in the chat room. I don't see anything new there happening. So I'm going to go on to what I was going to talk about today, and that's posted here. Well, I didn't want to finish one thing, though, in terms of how do we know what's true and what's not. Like I said, I believe that that evidence that we can get the truth by going to the highest source we can, but even if we're not thinking that we're doing that, just wanting the truth on a subject potentially goes to those that are listening, to those that they know it's probably not the first time they're doing it. But anyway, it depends on how their thirst is. They just, a casual thought of, well, I wish I knew the truth of that. If they've had other reasons that the next level was paying attention to them, I don't know if they're going to get a sign from that. TDNT did give us some indication that, waiting to your deathbed to want to communicate with God, wasn't necessarily going to get you anything. I believe they did say something like that at one point, but it's not really clear exactly what they said, so I could be wrong in the way I'm saying that. I want to qualify that. I can tell my memories are have different, sometimes have a vague quality to them, even in ideas. And sometimes they feel crystal clear. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's one of the benefits of standing up for them. So actually, I want to say one more thing about that. That graduation isn't over, Booster. It's not over right now. There's 3 different groups of people that Doe said could go with him. So So whether you're graduating to be on a spacecraft with Doe, when Doe's actually the captain of that spacecraft, the older member on board, maybe that's not going to happen, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. Doe didn't put a limit on. He didn't say, he said these are the people that are with him are examples of the people that will go with him, be with him. That was the first group. And the second group, and received significant service. Then there was a second group that would receive service, but it was not as significant service. That's why I think they would have jobs like the watchers. Maybe not all the watchers were in the same grade in school, so to speak. Carl Odie just posted a whole bunch of sayings on his blog of sayings from the Book of Enoch, and that was great. That was really, really tell the truth about a lot of things that happened there. And correspond with Genesis chapter 6 as well. You can see why it wasn't included in the Torah. Because the lower forces don't want that much truth spelled out. This way they could say that they were the ones that the Luciferians were actually the ones that created the planet. That's what like Rael is teaching. I'm not sure he's saying it in those terms, but he did say in his tape that I listened to that he met with Lucifer and Satan. That's the names they used. And they were working in opposition to they were fighting among one another. Maybe it's like the way that you've all seen, like me and Carl Odie and Merc Odie and Seraph Odie and I guess to some degree Neo-Odie between some. I haven't fought with all of them. About some things I have, in a sense. Told them that I felt like they were doing something wrong by withholding those audio tapes. I didn't agree with that at all. I made that very clear to them. So that's fighting with them, right? And people, when they would see us going back and forth on it, and Carl Odie points out things to me all the time, and when I didn't think there was any merit to it, I would, tell him that I don't see evidence of that. And in fact, I see evidence that he's wrong. And I would show it to him. That's just, being, if you're a check partner in the classroom and your class member, your partner said to you, that's not procedure to do that. Then would you just say, okay, yeah, I agree, when you believe it is procedure? What you would do is you would go to the books and you would start searching through the books. I did that many times, searching through the procedure books to see if they could find where the procedure was to do such and such in the Nutrilab, measuring that ingredient, flour, let's say, for instance. Let's say your partner said, no, you're supposed to hold that at a 30-degree angle when you are measuring flour, the knife blade. And let's say you remembered that it was a 45-degree angle. That's the way I remember the instruction. More like a 45-degree angle. They didn't say exactly. We didn't measure exactly the angle. We just approximated it. See, the humans would have done it so that you actually have to measure the angle. And that could be an exercise for some to do in order to get it in their heads. In the Old Testament, they did things like cutting your beard a certain way. Not that it really made any difference, really, to the next level, but when you did it according to the way Moses was giving you, then you were using his mind. You were absorbing his mind. It didn't mean that was the that had some major function in their biology or their mentality to cut it square. But it just, maybe it was a way of saying that in the future you're not going to have a beard. So you better get used to cutting it. And, because people might have thought that the longer their beard was showing their age and experience, as if that meant wisdom. So long hair and beards, long hair beards, was all considered, and you see the gurus in India and stuff, and they all started with the long hair, right? And maybe that's where it came from here. And that can even relate to what Jesus said, was that he had another fold that he was going to go to after he left them, which he told them that, I guess, during the time after he was killed. His vehicle was killed. And then he healed it, like he said, in 3.5 days. It was a characteristic of a member of the next level to do that. It did take some time. It's not like magic. It is magic to us, because humans don't know how to do that. But it's technique and mind power for the next level members. Let me go back to the chat room. Well, no, the one thing I wanted to say still was that, so listening to, so the people that I listen to the most, I'm not listening to them much anymore. Occasionally I do, because I feel like I got enough, and I got to put my focus on doing more of these broadcasts. So I want to get to these this posting here that I've demonstrated. Why is that thing coming up? Let me get this back again. Change the screen. I want to scroll down a little bit. So I wanted to talk about the famine and the use of the word pestilence, and the use of the word disease, and the way that TDNT talked about lessons as medicine, which it talks about, and how the two witnesses were the ones that brought the plagues, and that they were also in charge of the droughts and the rain, not in those days during the prophecy. Now, they're not prophesying anymore, right? But no, that doesn't mean that, because prophecy, the days of their prophecy are all the time that their words and their mind, their ideas, and their faces are apparently connected to those ideas, is available to us. It didn't mean only when you see next level depictions of the future, they apply to many times. Even that thing on with what Jesus said. But before I go on to all this, in Revelation 6, where it talks about smite the earth with plagues, I already said that. What did I do? I put that, maybe it didn't copy right. During the green horse is during the Trump administration. It's the harvest horse. That's why green is such a big deal now. And green auroras, borealis, and have been happening for a long time. But really kind of leading up to 2017 quite a bit. And now occasionally still with green comets. We just saw recently a green comet. 2 actually. I think Atlas might have looked green at first. And another one I forget the name of. And goes back to Revelation 9:14. The 6th angel trumpet time is when the next level when the 2 witnesses came. So that's talking about the whole period of time while they were here, and everything they started carries over. And so they're giving you an outline of everything to expect. And as soon as they left, then there were these individuals. The 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to slay the third part of the men. And so that started when they left. I'm not saying when, the same day. Next level doesn't deal in human days. They deal in, a day is like 1,000 years. So they deal in hours and parts of hours, minutes, in terms of when they're going to put something into motion, when certain things are going to go into motion, meaning the downfall of Babylon, the new Babylon, and the new revelation of Babylon, which is the new state of confusion. That's what the United States is right now. It's the United States of confusion. People don't know whether masks are safe or not, because there's a lot of evidence that shows that they're not. People don't know whether hydroxychloroquine is useful, because they won't they won't let us see the information in the mainstream media that said that it was valuable. We don't know whether people are getting brain disease from coronavirus. If they are, maybe they've also got some the HIV in there. Human immune system virus? No, what is it? I forgot what HIV stood for now. Which that French doctor who was a Nobel Prize winner said that he saw the sequence of HIV in it. So maybe it does. So maybe it is causing that kid that recently died, who was a college student, and he all of a sudden got some kind of paralysis, and he was tested positive for coronavirus. Who knows what condition he had leading up to that? See, that's the thing. They use that because there's misinformation and there's disinformation. Disinformation is like there's a little tiny piece of truth, and then a whole bunch of lies surrounding it to change it so that you don't see it. It's disguising the little piece of truth. And misinformation is actually putting out something that's a direct lie. It doesn't have, or a partial lie, a partial truth. Like saying 97% of the scientists agree that there's no debate that humans are causing global warming. So the case is closed. They don't even want to debate it. They don't even talk about it. They act like it's, the science is in. And anybody that knows anything about science knows that the science is never in. The science is always changing. Because science is all about discovery of more truth. More of what's real. TDNT use that word synonymously. What's true and what's real. In other words, if somebody, says something to you, that's real. They said it to you. Hearing it from somebody else of saying what they said to you is of course, a form of gossip, but that's the only way we can get information most of the time. is through third hand. It's always better to get it from the horse. But, one of the things that we were taught to be a good student of the next level is to follow instructions. So to me, when individuals are going out there talking about what Jesus said, you should be armed with the quotes from Jesus from the Gospels, because TDNT said we could count on that a crew worked very hard to keep that information true. Keep that information accurate. That was in the 4 Gospels. TDNT talked about that as like the red letter edition. Although some people in the red, they put what happened in Acts, Acts, in red letters, pertaining to when Paul said that the name that was given to him was Jesus, which I don't doubt that some kind of entity said he was Jesus. Or he could have made the whole thing up too, which Stam Odie talks about in the Heaven's Gate book. So I know it was on Doe's mind as well, and that Paul was used as the greatest, as the biggest form of Antichrist, when he said that you didn't have to work. And I've had many preachers tell me that by being celibate, you were working, and that you're not going to graduate. You're going against, Jesus wouldn't have come to give you the gift. By working, they were saying that you were working against Jesus' wishes. He wants you to receive the gift freely, because he loves everybody. See, what a gimmick, right? To get people to believe that they don't got to do anything, and all of a sudden they get this live forever thing with this individual that was demonstrating so much goodness. Like they would want to be around you when you had, you would get into the next level if the next level allowed you in there with that kind of a mindset, and pretty soon you'd be telling them that they're not following the right guidelines of Jesus on the next level spacecraft, if you still retain those memories. But which that's not going to happen, because the next level doesn't need anybody to interfere with them and to tell them how to do things. And so it becomes our honor to stand up for TDNT. And we answer to them. We don't answer to anybody else. It doesn't mean that if somebody else brings something to our attention that we don't give it, want to give it our best effort to see if there's truth in it, to compare it to things that we know that TDNT taught, and realize that we probably don't know everything that TDNT taught, and so that we might have got some things wrong. If we try to, we can get too, we can easily, and the influences will have us do this. They will have us start to come up with our own interpretations of things. And I've been accused of that, and I've done that. And it's through my book. My book has things in it that I was probably a little too confident about. But that didn't mean it was all wrong. Like I could have, said this scripture to me means this, 10 things, 20 things, because there's so much involved in some of these verses, and cross-referencing them with other ones and things like that, and based on that, feeling like that's what this means, this word means this, and and this timing appears to be this, and all that in general, because I didn't get any really specific times, because I can only get specific times in terms of the things that TDNT gave us. and the timing on the events that happened. But because those 7 trumpet soundings, I believe, started with the early 1900s, most in earnest. But there was time before that things were happening too, that I think reflect on even the falling of the sons of, which I didn't talk about it that way in my book. But I'm talking about it as hail. But hail meant something that's falling. And so, but that can mean both, the next level coming down, and also that could be when the Luciferians were demonstrating that they were going to fall again, which would have been all the souls that the next level brought to this planet from other planets, and gave them the choice to go through the lesson program or not. And if not, then they were left to their own. They were basically in jail on Earth. Not that they necessarily knew that. I don't know if they were told that. But even if they were told that, those original vehicles, if they didn't pass it on to somebody that lived longer than they did, then that information would be gone. But all the information that was passed on to those vehicles that they stole from the human kingdom, and souls that they stole from the human kingdom, if they were able to steal souls in the early times of this civilization. I don't know if the next level would have, I don't know what they would do. Probably, because souls don't all sprout. They don't all, as Jesus taught with the seeds, that the birds eat some of those seeds. And I believe the birds is reflecting on the way that the lower forces, the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls, are depicted as birds, and like eagles, but also next level can be depicted as eagles as well. So that can be talked about as like elder students, like the 4 archangels, which seem to be depicted as the 4 living beings in the book of Revelation, which are individuals that have crews. That's the way it's described in the Revelation. Everything in Revelation isn't 100% true, accurate. Not like the way that the Jesus materials are accurate. But they did say that all the events depicted there would all come to pass. So, and that doesn't conflict with Doe saying that one of the examples of one of the items that wasn't, that John didn't get right, is the way he said it, I think in the Inverness tape or the Portland tape or one of the others, in that same 1994 period, was that the 1,000 years had happened before, where Lucifer was locked up, happened before I guess before they came. That's been the impression I got from it. Because I don't know when because the fall because they keep on giving them new opportunities, bringing them back. And so the beginning of this civilization was when they brought back those souls to go through that test again. And that's where, they tried to influence 2 of the members of the next level, or one of the members of the next level, and a soul. Well, I don't know if that. I don't know if Eve was given a soul at that time. It doesn't depict it that way. But maybe Eve gets a piece of, maybe splits the soul. I don't know how it works exactly. Didn't get into that kind of detail. But I think they did indicate that I don't know. That's a question for Stewart. I was going to say split by having children. So I don't know if that's the case. I mean, in other words, it automatically does give you divided attention, right? You have to take care of this child. You can't be concerned about working for your older member as easily. I mean, because it takes your mind power, your force. You get tired, and you don't have the energy to oh, I gotta go talk to this person over here because when you have to take care of a child. Now you can get used to that, and then you can still do it. I mean, it doesn't mean that you curtail it totally. It just means that you have less energy for it and less time for it, and but it's not like we get graded by how many hours we put into something. I just standing for them for TDNT is a benefit to us and them because then somebody else gets the opportunity to have that seed planted, and that seed can grow very quickly. If they stay with it. That's why I know it's never involuntary. Because look at how voluntary it is. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not the one that's putting out this. Well, by passing on the information, I'm assisting the next level with what they might already know, on who's asking and who's not, but giving them a more direct recognition of what they've been on the path to, so that they can hopefully get they can use it. It can be useful. That's all. So that's why the next level makes sure that there's some students that are going to continue to talk about them and their information. And it doesn't mean that none of the dropouts were planned to be dropouts in such a way that they didn't have the opportunity to not drop out. In other words, if they could join with TDNT, then they potentially could see it through. But like in the case of Rio, maybe he joined in the beginning thinking that he believed it and was going to see it through, but there was a part of him that didn't recognize that though it was Jesus' return, and knew that he wasn't going to lay down his life with them. So he was just waiting to the last opportunity to leave. Okay, so he went into it with an ace in the hole. That's what TDNT used to call it in 1975. Like if you left a bank account or something, or something that you could go back to, you were leaving you kept an ace in the hole. You weren't giving your all to it, and it's not that that's wrong. It's not that wrong to do for those individuals. That's maybe the best they can do at that time with what they're up against. So this isn't a judgment against Rio or Neody. Not at all. That's just that's where his lesson was in accepting dough. And I got also the lesson of accepting dough when I didn't take his suggestion of being Melody's check partner on an overseer task, and I said to him I couldn't do it. So I did the same thing. I didn't accept those. If we don't accept his mind, then we're not accepting dough. If we don't accept his suggestions, we're not accepting dough. If we don't accept his procedures and his instructions and his use of words, even his terminology, then those are all degrees of putting our little spin on things. And so whenever doesn't mean that there's something wrong with having different ways of saying things, but but I would always include the keywords that Doe gave, and usually I end by saying that they said this or said that, but its intention is the biggest part of it. But using the keywords is very important, I think, because that shows the next level that we're trying to follow instructions. Those keywords are part of the instructions. I mean, talking about like somebody graduating. Well, I'm going to give you an example. I shouldn't have said I shouldn't have left it by saying the phoenix rising out of the ashes is dealing with the negativity and converting it into positivity. That's actually, the process is really the metamorphosis. The human individual metamorphosis is the best example of that. Because that's what TDNT taught, was the process compared to the caterpillar. So the caterpillar, dealing with the other caterpillars, is going to have all kinds of problems with those caterpillars. They're going to try to eat each other, or whatever, or mate with each other, or whatever they're going to do, and go after the same food. Anyway, but they got to get rid of all that and become selfless in order to become a butterfly. And the way you become selfless is by giving yourself to the next level's instructions. And that happens to be in the insect world, part of the program that puts into effect changing them into a new creature. And thus the new creature becomes a member of the next level, a student member of the next level, graduating into some condition that the next level saves for future growth. Or actually has grown enough to where they get some more elementary kind of jobs and tasks to do on spacecrafts, and maybe even off spacecrafts, in laboratories. Some of that can be as big as a spacecraft. I see, Kathy, you've been saying a lot of things here in the chat room. I'm going to have to go to the top. But I did read that one thing you said there, Kathy. Yeah, I go some days sometimes without checking my my Facebook page. So I do know that you're the same person, and I'll try to get back to you. But if you leave me a message, then I like when I went on there today, I saw that there was one message from Messenger, and I responded to that person right away. So I don't know if you're having trouble getting a message to me. I have been having trouble with my computer since one of my last. It's been really slow. I can't even load things that used to. I can't even load Internet Explorer. And I get this blank screen when I type something in my search bar. I got Windows 10. So I think I was either got a virus of some sort, or a worm, or so I got to go back to a previous version. But let me go back up to Booster saying, "Is there a hell? If so, where is it, and what is its purpose?" Well, hell is a condition of no longer being able to grow towards the next level of membership, because the spirit or the soul didn't grow when it was given the opportunity to many times. So an example would be well, an example is, let's say now, I'm not saying that people now are going to go to hell for this. In other words, we don't know how many opportunities are enough opportunities. But let's say you were faced with the Heaven's Gate story 20 times, 30 times, 40 times through the years, because of all the media that's been around. You kept on seeing that come up. And each time you didn't want to look into any more of it than was said in that one article, for instance. Even if you read the article, you might not have even read the articles because you saw what it was about and you didn't have any interest in it. Well, that's just that cult, right? And so if somebody goes through their whole life, not just with that, but like with other things like that, where they're not seeking the truth about things, then the next level is not going to be working with them much, if at all. And so they're just going to take the path of the human plant. They're going with the plant's programming that it received through the genes and through the environment and through so apparently if the events in the Revelations are all supposed to be realized, then at some point all those spirits that didn't take advantage of any opportunities to grow, that the next level was providing, which includes things like COVID, they're going to be recycled. Now, that doesn't mean that a whole bunch of spirits aren't saved in some capacity somewhere in a database. And those can become the information objects, even the way I think about it. Now, I might got this part wrong, but because TNO didn't get to this kind of a detail, but I wondered if they could be like little modules that could be used to seed the planet with what the humans can grow to do on their own without next level participation. If they gravitate to certain veins of information. So now, so that's the way that spirits would actually, so the earth is actually well, the human kingdom well, let me say something else. Now, okay, so is hell a place? That's a condition, right? So is it a place for all those souls and spirits? Well, yes, it can be. It can be a literal, because Tiendo talked about how there are all kinds of chambers in what we think of as the spirit world. And that souls know better how to navigate those chambers. And they even used the example of that movie Ghost, where the spirits that died, because we saw that in the classroom, the individuals that died, and they had to be taught that they could go right through a human. So another spirit knew that they could do that. And so when they did it, they made it sound like, well, that was weird, And maybe there was a kind of a, who knows what from it, but they don't have feelings. So I don't think they would have actually, responded the way they put it in the movie. I think they would just know that that was something they could do. And even going someplace, they could go through the door of the subway car. I think it was also depicted, right? And so that's an example of that you don't know what you don't know. So when you die and you don't know certain things, let's say you die and you think that spirits are real. Well, then when you die, you have more reality of the condition that you're in. If the next level doesn't take that spirit or that soul away from that area, or you don't gravitate to another place because you had that program before you died, that, for instance, the Tiendo used the example of Eckankar and how they believed that there was this place that was called Ek, and that when you died, if you believed in Ek before you died, that when you died, you'd be met by other people that had believed in Ek before they died, including the founder. And they would take you to Ek. And so you literally might be going to a location in the atmosphere of the planet. Now, could that also be inside the planet? Yes. It could be inside the planet. And that's the indication that's given through different forms of communication from the records. That the souls that had broke procedure and were starting to teach humans that there was no next level. There was nothing to graduate to. There was, or that the next level was something you got by believing it possible, which is the same thing that there's new age groups that believe that we're all gods, and the only thing that separates us from being God is believing that we're not. Real twist, right? And so, and then there's the people in the religions that believe that they go to heaven when they die and they get to be with God because they believed in the religion. And they're as far off the track as anybody else that believes that. And Doe talked about that in Statement 1 in 1975. And so Adam, when he broke procedure, was actually restricted to the earth, the soul that had a next level vehicle, but that the next level vehicle went through a reverse metamorphosis when he broke procedures, and when he had desires that were not the desires of his older member, like when he desired to have a helpmate, which T actually, T, the soul T, talked about as Elohim, decided to give him a helper. So he was giving him what he wanted. And then he took the advice of that helper, and that was against his instruction that he knew about. But she didn't know about it necessarily. I don't know if she told him that the instructions. Maybe it does say that he did. But she was, I guess, genetic, something the next level did. Tindo said that Jesus' vehicle was also changed in some way to make it able to do the task that it was being given to do by being taken on a spacecraft. Or it could have been done, the spacecraft could land right on top of Jesus, literally, and Jesus wouldn't even know it, because they could have a way that they land and everything's not visible, and he can see right through everything, so that nothing looks different to him, and or to the circumstance I'm talking about, so that they could do an operation on Mary, right? Or they could have picked up Mary and did it then. Luciferians do that with abductions. But my understanding is that the next level does most of their experimentation on the earth with humans. So, like, they don't pick up humans and then have the humans try to have intercourse, what was called fornication. On the spacecraft. Because they don't, that's like part of the animal behavior. I mean, you could make an analogy with not wanting humans might be fine with breeding animals, but maybe they don't want that happening in the bedroom. You know what I mean? Or maybe some of them get off on that. I don't know. Of course, anything's possible, but I think that might be like kind of a little bit of a sense that we wouldn't really want that. I don't know that it would be offensive to me if I happened to have two dogs that were mating at the time, if they were in the house where I was living. But I'm just using that as an example of, there's certain animal behaviors that we don't want to happen in our quarters. Of course, humans have made exceptions to that for the most part, but certainly fighting among one another, and ripping up the furniture and stuff by doing that, we wouldn't want that kind of behavior in our quarters. So that's a better example probably. But so when they had the flood, which they have all different society, all different myths from different regions have talk about a flood. So whenever that happened, and it could have happened a number of times over a number of different years, before and after the Noah experience. I don't know. Who knows? But in different regions. The space aliens, Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, had to go someplace. Now, cause my understanding is that they had vehicles that lived longer, Doe said, than human vehicles lived. But I don't know how long they lived. And whether they were taking vehicles, they could have been working with human equivalents, that's what they talked about as existing before current humans, on the planet, because there were previous civilizations. So I don't know how many vehicles those Luciferians had gathered in their underground bases or their undersea bases, or even potentially on another planet like Mars or the moon, maybe. I don't know if they were allowed to go to. Doe said he didn't know if they had the technology to go to other planets yet in those previous civilizations, but he knew that they had some high-tech abilities. The next level can keep them from learning certain things and keep them from leaving, even if they want to. So, let me go on from there. The purpose of hell is just a recycling. It's just it's like having a garbage collection. And that from being among the people on hell on earth, the whole earth isn't hell. But it's not heaven either. It's like in between. You have the choice to go in either direction. And that includes the spirit world around the planet. The electromagnetic field, if you want to look at it scientifically, that can house all kinds of frequency structures, like spirits or echoes. They're called a spirit and echo. And he said that a soul was a container for next level mind that was a plasma kind of physicality. Plasma-like, not plasma, but plasma-like, to give us an idea. He also called it a pillowcase. He also called it a pocket. Before he heard the word container through Bob Lazar's material, I believe, in what he read as the Yellow Book that was supposedly provided to humans that could have been something that was in English, or it could have been done in pictures. Who knows? Balthazar didn't get specific about that, but he read it, and he was reading English, so I don't know if he knew other languages. And then Harm Van Houten says in the chat room, I think hell is actually on Earth. Right, so it's on Earth, in the Earth, and off the Earth, potentially, literally, in a physical way, is what I'm trying to say. But that doesn't mean that there can't be a piece of heaven on Earth. Like when Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, it meant that they had the ability to get there because the instructions were being given to graduate. And that also by his hand was his help, was the way to do it. I am the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I'm talking about what Jesus said. That's not the case with me as Sawyer. I'm just a messenger, doing a messenger task. Standing up for T&O is a messenger task that all of us can have if we want it. So, So Booster says then, that's what I'm thinking. This is Kingdom of Luciferians. Talking to Harm. Well, yes. I mean, because they've been here, so they provided the misinformation, mind, that became the basis of all the governments. And they're running the show. They're in control. Those souls are actually literally, physically, mentally, and well, not physically so much, but mentally are in control of, only physically because of what technology they have, but are in control of humans. And they seek the humans that have the most influence over other humans. So they're actually the leaders of the governments. I'm not saying all the governments. And it's not judging anybody. It's not saying that they're all evil, the people that are leading the governments. They're not necessarily evil. They're judged by the next level. We can only judge behavior. So the amount of evil behavior that they're generating is showing how much evil they've accepted into their consciousness. But that doesn't. But we're not able to judge whether somebody that could be somebody that's been doing things that are very evil, but that the next level can forgive them of that and help them, and they can even be in public office, thinking that they're getting help from God and trying to do the best job they can. And they could be doing a poor job of that, or they could be doing a good job of that, relative to what, because they're judged but relative to what they were up against. They're not judged by what humans would judge them on. Like, for instance, somebody just sent me a long dossier. I mean, at least 10,000 words, or I think, on all the things that have been accumulated that Trump said and did and didn't do and lied about. And I don't doubt most of them. There were a few that I feel like were wrong. But I didn't read the whole thing. I just couldn't take the time to read the whole thing. I knew Trump was. I knew he did a lot of things. And I'm not political. So, well, I'm not political to the degree that I'm going to vote. I thought about voting for. I wondered about voting for what's his name, West, the rapper. But I don't know. But they say a vote for him is a vote for Trump because he's running as a Democrat, I think. So, but I mean, I heard some of the things he was talking about, and I can't vote for anybody. I don't think. I've got a ballot. I haven't even opened it. I'm just not part of this world anymore in that way. I'm still part of the world in different ways, but not in that one. I mean, I stay close to all the information from them, but I only do that because I want to know the truth, and I want to see the lies as well, and I want to try to help people. Break away from giving their allegiance to the beast. They're the beast. They're the human mammalians. That's why it was depicted as an animal. An animal with poisonous ways. And poison meaning if you follow everything they teach, you're not going to see the next level. You're not going to see the next level mind in something. You're not going to think the next level even really exists. So you're not going to use that as a criteria of judging your choices. You're going to get sick, and then the next level. You're not going to think about, God, can you help me with this, and how? You're not going to have that thought. You're not going to think about TDNT. Can you help me with this? Highest source there is. Can you help me with this? Can somebody help me with this? Is there a different way of going than they're telling me? They're saying there's nothing I can do but wear a mask and social distance, which in some places is 6 feet, in some places is, in England it's 10 feet, and they're expanding it even more now. Where Bill Cunningham, who's a Trump supporter on AM radio, was saying something that I've been saying for weeks now, that even months, that it doesn't matter what you do really that much. And because it's airborne. And it goes right through the masks, most of the masks. And if it doesn't go through the masks, then how attentive are you to taking care of your mask so that, I mean, there's so many ways, because the exhaling on the N95 masks, my understanding is that they don't have a vent. They don't have a filter on the exhale. Now they're making them that way. But so the best masks to wear are the ones that filter out the air in both directions. And have a tight fit. Because if it's in the air, then it can seep through. Anyway, but I mean, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't wear a mask, because we don't have any instruction to not wear a mask by TDNT. If TDNT were here right now, maybe they would have us wear masks. I don't know. We can't second guess what they would do. But to think that's the solution, that's where the deceit is. That's not a solution. That's like a Band-Aid at best. I mean, there's people that have done all the right things that are getting sick. And that jives with the 1918 reports that by the fourth wave, there were like 4 waves. By the fourth wave, it didn't seem to matter in how many people died in the cities that locked down harder and the cities that didn't lock down as hard. They ended up balancing out to about the same numbers. Not exactly, of course, because there's nothing exact about all this. Because you have to have different diseases in order to be in the category of potentially dying from it. Like you have to be 99.5% of the people that get it fully recover, without any hospital intervention. So it's been made into a much bigger crisis than it had to be. But the next level knew this was going to happen. And so they either let the humans leak it, even create it, or manipulate it into creation. Not really a creation, because they're not playing with the original materials, except to mix them together and to identify them through a microscope. But and know how to grow them, or where they come from like animals, bats, whatever, dogs, other animals, cow. People might get coronavirus from eating raw cow meat. They got that meat that's called steak tartare. They could get coronavirus that way, and so they could test positive. They could go to a big steak dinner and eat a little bit of raw meat and get some coronavirus, and then take a test and come out positive. I'm not saying that's actually true. I'm saying that, to me, is a possibility. And why not? If it's in the blood of that animal, then why can't you get it? And maybe how much blood you eat of that animal that's not cooked to where it kills it might determine how much coronavirus you get. Maybe that's the reason why TDNT wanted us to have well-done meat, and that's what the rule was in the Moses camp as well. I'm going to go back to the chat room. Well done, but not dry. You don't have to have it dry. So yeah, we're all programmed by the Luciferian mind. But we've got a combination, though. There's even mind from the next level in the genetic code. I mean, in the origin of the species. It just becomes more and more hard to identify the less we use it, the less we live by the instructions and the guidelines and the demonstrations by the older members and their students that came repeatedly back and forth. Over the years, like Adam, Enoch, Moses, Elijah, Jesus, were the 5 incarnations before this 6th incarnation as though It's interesting that we see his face in the during the sixth seal opening of the seven seals. And it was the sixth trumpet when TDNT came public. And it was the, well, you know what? There was a piece of scripture that I didn't include about the three frogs. I didn't include in my document that I got on the screen there, which is in Revelation 16, towards the end of it, I think. But see, Revelation 16:2 is where the clue is that everybody isn't. Not only there, in Revelation 9 also, and in Revelation 14 also, that talks about the people that, and 13 as well, that don't receive this mark, this identification, don't work for. The mark was actually a form of the number was like like being a number in their system. So I guess a credit card number would, could be looked at that way. But you had all these characteristics for the people that were giving their all to the human kingdom, and that the mark was either on your hand or your forehead, right? And when you had and the right hand, I think they said right hand. Did they say right hand? Hand or forehead. So right or left, it didn't matter. But because I'm not going to go into what that kind of meant, because maybe I got that scripture wrong in my memory. But I don't want to dwell on that right now. But your hand represented your work, who you worked for. And worship, Doe said the word worship really means work for. So you're worshiping the next level when you work for them, when you do tasks for them. That's why James in the New Testament record talked about that faith without works is dead faith. So that means all the people that believe in the Lord but aren't doing anything for the Lord they're not working for the Lord. They're not, if they keep on at that, and then when their vehicle dies, I don't know where they're going to go in their grade in school, whether they're going to graduate or they're going to stay in the same grade that they were in, and perhaps have another opportunity to get out of that grade in school, to march closer to being in the 12th grade, so that it's time that I want to get out of here. I don't feel like I have that yet in my consciousness, that I want to get out of here. I'm still comfortable with but I'm willing to give it all. So I'm willing to leave. I know that I'm going to leave, well, one way or another. So just being willing to is a big step. For me, it wasn't that big of a step, because I had received so much from them already that I recognized. And so, but for somebody else that's, hearing about this for the first time and didn't get to be with TDNT, to me that would be a huge step. But they may have grown to take that step where I haven't grown to take that step of being willing to, of wanting more separation from the world faster. I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm not separating from the world. What it means is that if I'm not asking for more growth in some way, but I do ask sometimes in my own way. I just noticed that. And I just realized that. And I feel like I've been given some help in that regard. I just noticed that now. But see, we grow at our own pace, is what I'm trying to say. And nobody is held to someone else's pace. Like I could ask again. I could say, well, can you give me more of that same kind of help that you gave me before? Okay, but see that mean? But somebody else could maybe ask. A week ago, they could have asked that question if they were in my shoes, you know what I mean, or equivalent shoes. I'm not talking about, like being somebody that talks about Heaven's Gate. I'm talking about anybody in life that's trying to conquer something. And if they think of a higher power, as being who they're asking for that help, the next level knows whether, they've been given the opportunity to. Once we hear about T&O, we are put more to the test. More is expected of those that much is given to. And hearing about T&O in a personal way, like by reading their materials, as opposed to the media way of just hearing what other people say about them, and a few of the things that they said, is a big difference. But even those little things on the media, no matter how terrible they are, can end up being seeds, taking those negatives when they hear more information. And documentaries are still coming out. I think the next level is behind the one that hasn't come out on HBO Max yet. I don't know. I just have that feeling I may be wrong. I mean, humans might have their reasons. I mean, of course they're going to have their reasons, but the next level might be behind the humans having those reasons. In other words, let's say somebody was going to want to put something in there that was going to be putting a bad light on somebody that they don't want to put a bad light onto. And so somebody was standing in the way of it coming out. So that could have their own conscience could be in the way of it, right? That can happen in Hollywood all the time, and not in Hollywood, but everywhere, when people are making documentaries or working for the government, or, they just don't want to follow that instruction. And a lot of police left the police force recently. I believe I've heard reported several times. Power to them. Not that there couldn't be somebody that's still there doing their job the best they can. And growing towards the next level. They can. Everything can be a path to the top of the mountain, the human kingdom mountain. But to get off, T&O is the way to get off now. Jesus isn't the way to get off by himself. But Jesus' instructions were part of the way to help people recognize that it's the same mind that came back. Because the same requirements plus, they always increase it. It's always got to be more difficult. Otherwise, we wouldn't be spawned to grow. We wouldn't. It's like, never having any bad weather, never having any animals or insects for the plants, right? There'd be nothing to challenge those plants. When you give decaying matter to the plants, they grow better. The compost. That's from the evil, from the death. From the death grows the life. From dealing with death. The human kingdom is a dead kingdom. In other words, it's a dead end. Because there's no place you can go. You can become the best at whatever it is that you become the best at. You can be paid the best at whatever it is you become paid the best at. And when you die, your memory may last for a long time, but that doesn't add to your stature. You are what you died with. The sum total of everything you received and believed in. You get what you believe. Even if what you believe is an illusion, you get that illusion of belief, of something real. You get the illusion of something being real. That's what the false gods are. All the people that tell you that when you die, you're going to go to heaven and you're going to meet Jesus. Well, because you tithed and didn't kill anybody, and you said your prayers for the bad things that you did, and said your confession in the confessional, and did the penance for it, of saying those words that we don't even know what they mean, most of the people that say them. They're brainwashed. But that doesn't mean that their next level is neglecting all those people. They each could be handled by the next level. The next level's computer systems are better than our computer systems by some huge percentage. So they can pay attention to everybody they want to pay attention to. And we never know when somebody's going to hear about T&O and they're going to just hit the deck running and all of a sudden be growing. I might never hear about them. So worshiping in the image of the beast is worshiping the mind of the beast. The image of the beast is the human image. It's all through the humans that the beast exists. They said, in Genesis that humans were made in God's image. Well, I believe Doe felt like that meant the appearance. So that's the humanness of them. They're humanoid creatures. That's the computers we're talking about. I'm talking about. There's no we except for the three I's, the genetic, environmental, and to whatever degree I've taken control of this vehicle, that third eye. That we all have. So, go back to the chat room. See if I'm still ticking here at 1:55. Then Harm von Houten says, Sawyer, if you ask me about, Booster says, human immunodeficiency virus. Oh, thank you. Human immunodeficiency virus. That's HIV. Right, your immune system's broken. Well, see, that's the thing. How many people's immune systems are broken and we don't even know that they're broken? Because it just hasn't surfaced yet. And then Sawyer says, oh, no, you asked me about Corona. Oh, yeah. He says it's about money and power. And yeah. But I believe that the next level is allowing it to happen. And they can regulate it so that, it kind of happens in shifts. Doe said that, the Luciferians might be coming back in shifts with their spacecrafts. That might be one way, it might even be visible. But they also said that all we might see is people dying in droves. So, now, they're not going to be dying. Who knows what they're going to be dying from? They could die from heart failure. In fact, there was this thing on this other screen that I had of this, let me see where it was. Could have swore it was, well, I was reminded of the scripture that talked about how they shall fight every one against his brother and every one against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. I will overturn it, and it shall be no more until it comes whose right it is, and I will give it to him. I mean, these are all things that, Christians could say, well, nation against nation. And what did I do with that? Famines. No, I don't want to go back there. Well, it said that people their hearts would be failing for fear. That's the part I was looking for. I was trying to give you the chapter and verse on it, but you can always look that up. But there are people that, I imagine even people probably died when they were put on the ventilators. Because that's not a pleasant experience either. To be honest, especially for a certain amount of time, the ventilators killed a lot of people, like 80% of the people on ventilators, I saw that number, died from those ventilators. And I saw a nurse testify in Elmhurst, New York, the epicenter of the epicenter, that people were put on ventilators that shouldn't have been put on ventilators. And there was also evidence that that people were paid, not people, but the hospital was paid, so they were encouraging the use of ventilators. Because they were paid like $13,000 for every person that went on a ventilator. And like $1,300 or something like that for every COVID patient. People in hospitals in the administration, they balance people's lives all the time. And we can end up self-justifying our behavior by saying they really need it. They really need the ventilator. They can convince themselves that they really need it. They can refuse to see that there's a treatment other than a vaccination. And they don't want to tell us about it. Fauci doesn't want to tell us about those. But we learned that Fauci was taking vitamins for something. I think some kind of D vitamin he took. But I didn't learn that about a month ago. How come we didn't know that right in the beginning? I was watching people talking about everything that Fauci said. Every day I was watching something from The Great American Vagabond. And from Dr. Kaufman, and from the Corbett Report, and from Joe Rogan, and from Jimmy Dore, and from Israeli News Live, and from Peggy, and from Dr. Mercola's partner, Aaron, and from Dr. Mercola, and from, I can go on and on. I can just keep on going. From Sayer G, and from, from the Children's Health Defense, from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of Robert F. Kennedy, and from Ron Paul, and from Dr. Judy Mikovich, and the woman that's running for city council in Ireland, or some position in Ireland. I forgot her name now. And a number of other doctors, a whole bunch of doctors that I can see in my head, but dozens. Well, I shouldn't say dozens. I should say about a dozen, maybe. And leaders of countries, different countries. It's good to get news from other countries. Okay, so Corona. And Kathy Southwestern says, Booster, unfortunately, no older member is present incarnate on Earth right now, so we aren't being led anywhere. You're being led by Tiando's information, if you want to be. Kathy Southwestern says, I've been thinking very strongly lately that we, the humans, are in fact demons. I know you brought that up the last time, and where does that take you, though, Kathy Southwestern? Because if it doesn't take you out of being a demon, then there's no positive to that. we might as well just cash it in and die. I mean, what benefit is it going to be to tell somebody that they're a demon? And who and why are you the judge? I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm just playing it out. That if I was going to tell somebody that, I'd be telling them that they're a demon. And if I'm going to say anything about TDNT after that, they're not going to listen to a word we say. So putting too much emphasis on that, or putting any emphasis on that, is if you can say another way to say that is that I mean, the way TDNT talked about it is that we are saturated with misinformation. And then point out all the reasons why there's misinformation in this world. And that we can even outgrow being mammals. We can even outgrow reproducing. We can even outgrow, get to the specifics. Then you might, sexuality. Then you might get some people that say, you know what, that makes sense to me. But if you say that, we're all demons to somebody, then you're going to get a whole bunch of people that are going to not listen to you for another second. You're going to have a whole bunch of other people that are going to be angry with you. And how do you know? How can you prove that? And then you're going to be saying, you're judging me. You're going to be judging people. And Jesus said that judge not lest you want to be judged by the same judgment that you're imposing on somebody else. So I think there's a form of a trick to that recognition that can actually become a big negative, in my opinion. If you can, explain to me how it's not that, I'll listen to what you have to say. You're probably not even listening now because you had to go. So, I'm wearing a striped dress in my profile pic. Okay. No, I know your name on my Facebook page. You don't have to describe your vehicle. Then Rev.And Newton says, Kathy Southwestern, I've thought about that also, and I think most are good souls, but demons are trying to take over more and more. Yes, I don't know what the numbers are, but it doesn't matter because we don't judge anybody else. All we judge is what they do. So if they're doing things that are evil, harming people, killing people, stealing from people that if they're stealing to eat for their kids, I wish they would ask the next level for help and see if they could go do something else instead of doing that. But because there still are food programs, and there still are churches that will feed people and give you boxes of food, even if you got to say their prayers and stuff. So what? That's better than stealing from somebody else, or even asking somebody in a store for help with food, and even offering to do some work for them. Would be better than stealing from somebody for food. But if you're in a hurricane and you don't have any water to drink and everything's closed down and the store was busted out, or there's nobody there to open the store, and people need food and medicine and water, then yeah, bust that window open. And if there's consequences to it, then suffer the consequences, but it was for a good reason. A next level law to help somebody. Humanitarian is the best behavior we can demonstrate when the older member is not with us. When the older member is with us, the best behavior we can demonstrate is all the behaviors and ways that the next level older member was teaching. So we have the choice, where to put our energy would be joining with the older member if we had that opportunity. We don't have that opportunity now. That opportunity is not coming back. So giving to other humans is showing the next level, the second greatest commandment that Jesus talked about of loving your neighbor as yourself, or give to those who ask of you. And love meant, brotherly love. It didn't mean passionate, because that was a different word. Booster says, I don't know about demons, but it seems a large portion of society is soulless. That may be so. But, I don't think there were that many souls sown. Tiendo said that there's only thousands of members of the next level. But we don't know that the spirits can't be saved as well. And we don't know what grade in school they're in. So DJ DeConic says, hello, Sawyer. I made it tonight, just a bit late. Yeah, good to see you. It's true, I haven't seen you in a while. And I'll be the one. Then Booster says, I'll be the one to bring it up. What do you think of the Trump COVID diagnosis? There's a lot of theories out there. Well, I don't know. It could be a fraud by either side. It could be he was poisoned, with COVID virus. They could have given it to him. I wondered if the Dems were gonna stoop to that. Actually giving people coronavirus. So when that happened, it was like, I wonder if that's what happened. But then I'm not saying that's the case. And of course I don't know. It could be exactly what they've said so far. And he could have got it, because that other person was exposed to it, and but we know that the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, and if you list, there's so many agencies, Homeland Security, if they think that having Trump in office is jeopardizing their national security in some way, they don't even have to tell anybody about it. They can have an operative actually infiltrate the Trump campaign, the Trump tight-knit circle, the Secret Service, to expose somebody with something. It's really hard for me to imagine that he got it because it was in the air. Like, because he would have got it long before now if it was in the air anymore. He's been tested many times. Why all of a sudden this test? Was it a different kind of test? Or did he just happen to eat a rare steak, that had coronavirus in it? I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that the way that many liberals and Democrats are responding, I'm pointing out to them because I happen to know people that are liberal Democrats that on their Facebook page were talking about being glad that Trump's getting what I'm talking about, like 10 different people thought he was getting what was coming to him, calling it karma, and that he deserves it, and they're glad to get rid of him. and there's not coming back from this. That coronavirus is so bad for people of that age that he's going to not be fit for doing the job of president anymore. I mean, where people are getting some of these ideas is like getting wilder and wilder. I mean, people consider my ideas wild, okay? But at least I can point to, a bunch of examples on pretty much anything I talk about publicly. Of doctors that said this or, studied this and came up with this, and statistics that the CDC put out, and 6% of the people that died from coronavirus had coronavirus only. They didn't have 2.6 average of other illnesses in their diagnosis. Serious illnesses, death-defying illnesses, where they would have died soon anyway. And they were accelerated by this virus. So, but, some people, this is boosting Trump in the polls. And it's like the people that were in the middle are the only ones that are really going to change. Now, I'm like somebody like in the middle, in a sense. Well, not really. I'm like outside the whole thing because I know they're all being manipulated and they're all manipulating other people. And they're all deceiving other people. That's part of the game. Politics is the art. I call it the art of deceit. I don't know if somebody else said that or not. The art of deceit. But it's not just the art, it's the practice of deceit. It's the and manipulation. I was listening to a show. I like that station. It's 1100 on the AM dial, at least where I am. That comes out of Cleveland. I think it's Cleveland. There's another one from Baltimore that I like. That they both run coast to coast. But I was listening to another program on this one. Also, Ground Zero is on the one that's 1100 on the dial. I like listening to him, to Clyde. Was talking about the KGB and all the different agencies that the names changed and everything, and how they were so much worse than the CIA. Even though they knew that the CIA did all kinds of dirty tricks, but the KGB was much worse. And I don't believe it. I don't believe one's worse than the other. But they put moles and, they use things against people. They set people up, they frame them, and then they blackmail them into doing jobs for them. You know what I mean? So that's all going on. So for all I know, that person that was on Air Force One was framed. Or they put something on that person's backpack right before they got on the plane. And therefore it got spread through the air in the plane. Because the air circulation, in the planes especially, terrible. And it blows everything around until it gets to a vent where it sucks it in. And people's immune systems are weakened in airplanes because of the high altitude, because of certain radiation poisoning, as much as an X-ray from one ride in an airplane. And some people can be actually really harmed by X-rays. You got different sensitivities with all these things. But the fact that Melania also got it, right? And the fact that right away I heard that a Republican senator, a federal senator, got it, tested positive. Seems like it happened in, three happened. Oh, no, well, four with that aide to the president, to Trump. And so he had three people all at once, actually, which is interesting that it's the three. That the first story came out, that it was three people that were infected. Like the three frogs in Revelation 16 that I was trying to get to. Which is similar to like the three horses of the apocalypse. The second, third, and the fourth. And brimstone is the last one, which is associated with lava and death from elements on the planet. Maybe even pests, disease, bacteria, viruses, particles. Lead, mercury, coming through the vaccinations and through the air, through the water. Because of the fossil fuels, that's one of the things that they have, all those components are in those items. But see, if a fossil fuel ends up settling in the ocean, the carbon dioxide, connected with the fossil fuel, ends up going into the oceans, then it becomes a small particle that makes its way to the bottom. I don't know how long it'll take. And the lakes as well, and therefore the reservoirs as well. And so we can be getting a lot of mineral, heavy metal pollution from the water supply. But then if you use a filter system, or if you have a well, then the earth became the filter system. If it was a good well. Then you're not going to get a lot of those elements. But some of those elements can be good, I'm sure. But in small quantities. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the chat room. Haram Van Newton says, Booster, what would we say if it was influenza or some other virus? Probably they would say, take some rest until tomorrow, Donald. Yeah, right. And so when he left to go to the military hospital there. The name just escaped me. That was, kind of fishy, and what I wondered about that was, my first wondering was, because sometimes the wonderings we have, I think, sometimes can be because of the next level giving us a clue. Maybe. I don't know. Not all the time. That's happened to me a number of times. And I believe I've gotten clues from wondering about something. When it naturally happens, I can't think about wondering about it. It doesn't always happen. But the thought I had was that they didn't want them to be in the same place in case they were after him. He didn't want his wife to be subject to their attack. Because he wouldn't necessarily know if they were leading him into a circumstance to where they could bump him off. But I don't think they want to bump him off necessarily right now. So I'm not totally sure that the Democrats really care who wins, because I think they can have their way no matter what, and they can keep their support base if they have Trump to do all the bullying work, like sending the police into the cities. They can make them look bad while they come up with all these lofty ideas of how to reconform the police department, which ends up giving them more money to the government to do what they want with. If they can disband the police force like they did in New York City by reducing the budget, the $8 billion budget was reduced down to $7 billion. And they said they were going to take that money and put it into social help, the people socially. And then, to me, what that means is they're going to hire contact tracers. They're going to be the new kind of brown shirts to go around and snoop on people and even take children away from their families, like it's happening in Australia, if they suspect that the parents have COVID, so that the kids don't get it and become a spreader of it. It's 1984 on steroids. This is what this is leading to. And they're actually doing it in Australia. And I can't imagine that they don't have a huge fight on their hands. Like creating a civil war in all these countries. All these England, France. The longer that we go with the fact that the death rate's gone down tremendously, the more people are saying, this is ridiculous. This is no worse than the flu, and yet we're all still being locked down, and we're losing our livelihoods, and the suicide rates are going up, and people are using more, self-medicating and using more pharmaceuticals to get them out of these terrible moods and forms of depression and stuff. You had 1 million people, was estimated, in Berlin that Robert F. Kennedy went and spoke at, that weren't wearing masks, and they were denying social distancing. They were packed into the streets during that one day of protest. You get that many people together, the only way they would get rid of them would be to kill them all. But they can actually, like one of the reasons why I think they're not censoring as much as they could is because they get to know who's coming out and making videos that can threaten their agenda. And then they can get rid of them all in one swoop. And we won't even know the difference if they do that. It might come to that. But if they did that, they would probably want to do it. I don't think they're going to do it in that way. I think they're more shrewd than that. Because that's just going to wreak, because too many people could wake up from that, from seeing that. But, there's people that are so brainwashed that they don't even look at any of the alternative information at all about anything. They don't even really want to read the headlines. So they block the people that are in their lives that would make those kind of posts. But some of the people still keep an open door to it, even though they demonstrate acting the opposite. To me, that means that they still have some mind in them from the next level. I just went to an open mic that was outdoors behind a hole-in-the-wall bar, and in New York, and there were like about 50 people. Now they had to chain off an area that they couldn't go beyond that and have alcohol. And then they were supposed to, if you were standing, then it was assumed that you were headed towards the bar or the restaurant or the restroom. And so you'd have to put a mask on. And if you were sitting, then you didn't have to wear a mask. And so most of the people in that weren't wearing masks. But some of the musicians that were in the house band that I ended up playing with would put on masks, and sometimes they wouldn't. Mostly they wouldn't. But they wanted to behave because a police car drove by. But they were all sitting mostly anyway. So that's how they got around that. But see, the stupid law, sitting or standing, It's like, what kind of stupid law in the restaurants is that you can be sitting at the table or outside, in the outside room, and you don't have to wear a mask while you eat. But as soon as you get up to go to the restroom or whatever reason, you have to put on a mask. So the virus is going to say, okay, it's not going to come out of me while I'm eating, right? Because I'm not breathing, right? It's not going to get all over everything, the silverware and everything, and it's not going to get all over my hands. And then I'm going to go to the restroom, and I'm going to touch the doorknob, or it's going to blow off of me as I walk. And we expose everybody to my air around me from my exhale, because my thing doesn't even filter out when I exhale. And so even if I put the mask on, I'm going to be blowing that air all over everybody in the restaurant. And that air can contain thousands of microns. Is that what it is, microns? And so that's okay. The government's laws and rules are like they can show that they do a little bit of value, right? By knocking down the amount of virus that can come to you, like through a sneeze or through a cough, or the ones that are riding on particles that aren't aerosols. But there's aerosols that are coming out of us as well, because carbon dioxide comes out of us. That's an aerosol, and it comes out, and carbon dioxide has some oxygen particles that were changed, right? CO2, the O is the oxygen part. So these businesses, they have these strict guidelines, and then they got the police driving around enforcing them. But they only came around once during the 2 to 9, the 7 hours that I was there. Gosh, I was there that long, huh? Wow. And people were not following those instructions. They were standing all the time. They were going outside the line for drinking, and then they were called back in by the people that was organizing the open mic jam. It was a house band with it that would play with a lot of the people. So they were providing like a live karaoke. Right. If it was some other virus, then they would just say, right, just, drink plenty of water, stay off your feet, don't go out in public. That would be good advice for any virus. If you have to go out in public to survive, then take an antihistamine that dries your sinuses up so that, so at least you're not dripping everything through your nose. Might still be in your breath, though. And Booster says the COVID-19 tests are infamous for producing false positive results. I know. I was really shocked to read that they were pumping him full of experimental drugs. He really seemed fine before going to the hospital. Yeah, I wonder about that too. The antibiotic treatment. The antibody treatment. My understanding is that comes from the blood of people that had coronavirus. Antibodies. I don't know. Maybe it does help, though. I don't know for sure. Number 44. And then they were giving him some steroid because of the antibody treatment had some negative effect on him. So they gave him some steroid that changed that. But they were also giving him vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and I think B3. No, D3, not B. D3, C, and zinc. Which I don't doubt he was using that before then. He told us about it during one of his briefings. He was saying too many things at the briefings. That's why talking about alternative treatments. And they didn't want to hear that. So they made him discontinue the briefings. He doesn't have all the power. I've heard other people talk about that. That some say they had sources with the CIA that knew. And Han Van Uden says, I believe Corona is real. It's made, if it's made or not, I don't know. But I also believe they use it to make money and to make some other things happen in their agendas. I agree completely. Akaya Jewel, morning Sawyer, how have you been, sir? It's a cold, rainy England morning. Got the children off to school, and here I am. Well, that's good that you got the school going there again. I think the kids need that social exposure, and the parents need a break from the kids. So it's starting to get cold and rainy in Vermont now too. So like it's down in the 40s most nights now, and up into the mid 60s. And it's supposed to go up to 70 though next week during the height, and down in the 50s. I'm starting to get tired, folks. But I didn't go through that document that I got posted there. I did go through it quickly before, and I'll go through it quickly again before I end the live stream. And that means I got to go back here. I'm still ticking, right? I'm having trouble focusing now. It's not the time to go through this that well. But let me start from the top, since some of you all might just joined me. So I'm just calling this one part of the formula to thrive and survive, which is to believe in and stand for TDNT. But I do want to go through different scriptures at times, different parts of the records. I shouldn't use the word scripture, because the main word Do used all the time was records, because it's less. Because when we hear that word scripture, we can think, oh my gosh, do I have to listen to that? And I understand that point of view, but the fact is that those are, some of them are the records of the relationship of the next level working with the human kingdom over the course of the civilization. And so we can count on what is in the four Gospels as coming from Jesus, and according to T, Do served in the task, and Do recognized this as well, that was in the vehicle that was called Jesus, but they didn't return as Jesus because Jesus was the name of the vehicle. And that vehicle wasn't returning. But that vehicle may return in a spacecraft, not coming down to the Earth, when all is said and done on this planet, before the full recycling takes shape. I don't know how far in advance that is. TDNT said that a next level crew worked very hard to preserve the sayings, teachings of Jesus found in the four gospel accounts, the original red letter. I'm reading from my document. I already just talked about this. I got halfway through it and I realized I already just said this in so many words. But I skipped where I said, how do I know the next level is in charge of COVID and the current state of affairs on Earth, and in particular in the U.S.? Excuse me a second. It's getting pretty cold in this room. I should turn on my heater, but which I will. Well, what goes with this question is how do we know what the truth is about these reports that we get? Well, as you all know, I believe, but a lot of people don't know, is that the more you seek the truth, the more the more you start to get a feeling. You kind of develop like a muscle memory. Now, you can't necessarily count on it 100%. But we do tend to gain confidence that we're seeing a more accurate picture of certain things. Like Hiram said before, that he believes that the coronavirus is real, but he doesn't know if it's made up or not. Okay, that's being totally honest. I feel the same exact way. Now, I can kind of lean towards thinking that it was made up when I see evidence of it, and I've seen some evidence of it, okay? And Trump even released some evidence of that when he said that they were trying to get the coronavirus to jump from bats to humans in Wuhan. And also that was happening, according to Judy Mikovich, in Fort Detrick. And it was in Newsweek magazine that was published, that they gave $3.1 million through Fauci to a number of Chinese laboratories, including the Wuhan laboratory. And then there was a couple million more in dispute that I don't know if was ever sent or not. Anyway, so you see these things, and so I accumulate them as they come in. And then I see them from different sources. Now, some of those different sources might be actually referring to the same one source. And that one source could have been sown by the CIA or the KGB. You know, they're saying that the KGB is spending all their effort on trying to sow misinformation into the U.S. arena. And they may be, but I think they're putting more effort out into their own arena. But, because there's people everywhere that are questioning things. And we have to question. If we don't question everything that they tell us, then we're potentially becoming the medium for misinformation. Now, I don't question everything, like automatically. But I do question a lot of things, and I do wonder about whether this is really happening the way they're saying it is on pretty much everything that the mainstream media puts out, everything that the Democratic-leaning moguls that own the corporations, that are the biggest shareholders of the corporations, that run the major media organizations, the NBC, the CBS, ABC, probably Yahoo, Google, MSNBC, Fox maybe, but Fox maybe a little less. Trying to play both sides to some degree. Which is a good thing because we need both sides. But I think gone are the days that Fox was the big coronavirus the media organization where only the right-wingers were paying attention to. Because there's plenty of, 43% of the vote in the United States is from independents that are registered to vote. And so that's what can make or break an election. Because a lot of those independents don't even vote every election. Like I'm one of them. But I've never voted for a Republican candidate. But I wasn't voting all the time that I was in Tino's classroom. So, and I didn't vote in every election for president, since I left in 1994. But what I was pointing out with this verse from Matthew 24:7, for nations shall rise against nations and kingdoms against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. Different places, locations, okay? Well, see the word famines and pestilence are two different words. And for famine, it's the Greek word limos, through the idea of destitution. So famine means you're being denied or being... destitution has to do with being poor, right? And being, having a hard time living, okay? So reducing us all to that, taking away our jobs, is causing famine. Also, it's causing hunger. There's more people that are on the food lines, lining up at the churches or wherever, or applying for food stamps. And Trump made food stamps harder to get not too long ago. So he's not, Mr. Goodbar or something. He's in bed with them on a number of things. And the left is wrong about some of the things they're saying about him. So both is happening, I think. Well, then again, I don't know if some of the reports that I've got about things that I believe he said, because I didn't see him say them in all cases. Who knows if some of those things are misinformation, but you would think that you would have heard about it by now because of how bad the Democrats want to make him look worse than he is already. And I stay close to all the news, so I listen to all the channels I can get, probably about a dozen different or more different sources. So that word for famine is also used as hunger. There shall be hunger and dearth. What's dearth? I don't even know what that word means. Scarcity of harvest. Yeah, famine could even be looked at as the way that the food supply has been so tampered with pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and antibiotics in the animals in order to keep their infections from killing them, so they can keep on giving milk. It goes on and on and on and on. The GMO products, the phony fats, the phony sugars. They're even making phony, what is that now? Phony viruses. And the bad air. And the terrible water with lead in it and everything else. Even potentially in the waters that are in bottled water. You don't know what you're getting unless you have each one tested. But, so famine can be that the vehicles are alive and they're walking around, but they're being starved to death because they're not being given nutrition. And why wouldn't they be teaching us to have good nutrition? By the CDC. The Surgeon General is the one that always keeps on coming out and saying, how you need to have better nutrition. But they're not recommending it. All the briefings that the Surgeon General was a part of that Trump gave, he wasn't saying nutrition. So that tells you that there's an awful amount of fishiness going on. There's a lot of conspiracies going on here. Side conspiracies. But at the same time, then there's leaks. Now, we know that presidents do leaks. Nixon did it. I don't know who else did it. I just know about Nixon's leaks that he admitted to in the tapes that he had made. Why? Because they think they're justified. They believe in what they're doing. And they want record of what they said so that so they're not accused of certain things. That's my only imagination of why they had the tapes. It's either that or that the Next Level kind of compelled them to tape things so that give people an opportunity to see the deceit that was going on. Which the Next Level wouldn't make them do it. The Next Level would potentially, they'll give him the idea if he was asking, if he was thinking about security. If, let's say somebody asked him, do you want to tape these conversations in this Oval Office? And he might have, the Next Level, he might have wondered, I wonder if that would be a good idea. What do you think, Then that's him asking for somebody else's input. The Next Level could then give him that because he was asking for it. Like Jesus said, ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened to you. We have to be doing things. Standing for the Next Level. Standing for T&O in particular. It also describes that word as disease. Well, no, I'm talking about the word, now I'm going down to the word pestilence in that statement, in that piece of scripture. Okay, this is where I should use that other software that allows me to split the screen. I don't think I can split the screen, can I? No. So the word pestilence, which Jesus used in that Matthew 7:23, whatever it was, is also translated as plagues. And as a pest, a pestilent fellow, a pest or a plague. Right. So But in the Greek dictionary, it talks about how it could also be considered a disease in the Strong's Concordance. And so who or what is showed to be delivering these events that includes earthquakes? Well, humans are delivering these events. Well, they're saying it's from the virus, right? But it's humans that are making the policies. But what I'm getting at is where Revelation 11:3 comes in. It talks about the two witnesses, because that's where it talks about that they shall prophesy 1,203 score days, clothed in sackcloth. That doesn't mean they're not prophesying after that. They're prophesying for that amount of time, just wearing plain clothes, and it's two of them together. Right? So that's T and Do together, and that's about how long they did it. They talked publicly, inspired by the next level. And then describes them as olive trees and two candlesticks. Well, both of those depictions, I'm not going to go through every verse here because that's not what I'm trying to get at here. But I've done that in my videos that are posted on my channel here. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So in other words, they get what they dish out. And Revelation 11:6 says, these have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in those days. And what do we got now? We've had since 1990s, we've had increased drought in the West, where it was T and Do's main area, where they felt closest to the next level, which was west of the Mississippi River. And where is most of the drought taking place? The West Coast cities. South, where they went public for the first time in North Hollywood, California. The desert area, right? Normally. But that word for, but they also said, rain not in the days of their prophecy. Well, that's drought. That's what I'm talking about, right? Then in Revelation 16:2, well, I want to skip down to the other part. Is killed with hunger in Revelation 6:8. In other words, they're being starved, or people are being starved of nutrition by the beast, the one that even pays farmers to not plant certain things. Well, why can't you have them plant something else that's more useful in those fields? I mean, let them go fallow for 1 year, sure. But then rotate your crops so there's different things planted throughout 7 years. That was all taught in the Old Testament records. And people have verified that makes a lot of sense because it provides the minerals from what comes off of these plants after you harvest, because you generally leave that behind, and that gets plowed under and like recomposted. And the root systems and all that. And it talks about plagues and sorceries in Revelation 9:20 and 21. Sorceries, that word is related to pharmacology. The first 6 letters of the word translated from the Greek is PHARMA or M, and then some other letters, not the words. And people are becoming addicted to the pharmaceutical companies. Many drugs, prescription and otherwise. Excuse me. Excuse me. Let me go back to the chat room. I think I'm about ready to close, so I'm just going to find out any last thoughts you've had. And then I'm going to bring it to an end because I'm just getting too tired. So how would you rate, so Booster says, how would you rate Vermont? I'm in California and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. No, Vermont is getting a little more sane. And it happens to be a Republican governor. And he was pretty intense about the lockdown, and he made wearing masks a mandate, but it wasn't enforceable, except by people. So so people would end up turning people in who weren't wearing a mask, like at a restaurant or something, or outside the restaurant, depending on where it was. I don't know. I don't go out to restaurants anyway, so I didn't see what was happening. A lot of people, I don't know about Vermont very much, but because I do more things in New York, are defying the mask orders, even in the corporations, even in the food store, that even had a person at the door at one point that wouldn't let you, didn't do anything to you if you insisted on going in the food store, but you probably would have had the police called on you, because Stewart's was doing that. Is one of the chain fast food convenience stores that are gasoline stores as well. They called the police on somebody that I heard about from somebody in the grocery store. Told me that. Who decided not to wear a mask in there. And that Stewart's is right across the street from the police station. That wasn't too hard for them to run over there. But supposedly he was fined. Now, I don't know if he's going to pay that fine, because I don't think they actually have a law on the books saying that you have to wear a mask. So they might have given him a fine to, be like something to and then trying to see if they can get him riled up to actually give him a fine they could actually charge him for. Anyway, but a lot of people throughout the whole thing in this little New York town, well, not a lot, but some people were never wearing masks. Like there's like in this little town there's like I don't know, maybe there's 5,000 people spread out, and there's like 3 hardware stores. One's like a big box. It's a Tractor Supply. They call it. It's like for farmers, basically, but it's for anybody. And they sell tools there and screws and nuts and bolts and all that. So it's like a hardware store too. But there were people in those stores that weren't wearing their masks all the time, and then they were cracked down again, and people would wear them all the time, and then I would see them again without wearing them. And so people were bucking all the time. I was bucking as well. I would, if I saw anybody in the store coming in or out that wasn't wearing a mask, that didn't take it off that second, I would kind of pull the mask down around my chin. And then if somebody says anything to me, I would just pull it up again, because I wasn't going to try to start a ruckus. So how would you rate, Booster says, how would you rate Vermont? I just read that one. So I don't know how to rate them compared to any other place. Then Harm Van Houten says, thanks for streaming, Sawyer. Enjoyed it. Good night. Until next time. You're welcome. Well, good night, folks. It's been a pleasure. I hope you all are well, and I hope we get to talk again. If the next level is willing. And I don't do things that are stupid, which I'm not planning to do, but I do have to try to work on this computer problem I'm having. That's making everything very slow, and certain windows, like my search window, I'm running Windows 10. I should get a computer, I can afford it, that's running Linus, because who knows what limitations I'm going to run into running a Microsoft website when I'm noticed as someone that is talking against vaccinations as a as a rule, even though I'm not telling people they shouldn't get vaccinated. I'm saying that I believe there's healthier ways of getting immunity that don't have side effects. It's not worth the risk. Using diet, like the Transfiguration diet, for instance. All right, so with that said, Exit Booster says bye. Okay, cool. Good night, folks.